You're on, you're on. It's good. Let's get this guy working. I don't know when you're watching this. It might be the middle of the summer. But for me, it's pre-Christmas. So that's why the Christmas attire, the decorations in the background, and the eggnog. Cheers. This is a wonderful glass of eggnog with Kraken dark rum. Merry Christmas. Or Happy July, whenever it happens to be for you. But for me, it's Christmas time. Wave to the GoPro. It's fired up and working. Oh, maybe I should wear the microphone instead of leaving it down on the couch. That will explain the sound. Hopefully, this is better. You would not believe how many times I did that while making Survivorman, where I'd forget to turn on, like, you know, I've talked about this before. Let me just tangent for a second. I've talked about this in the past. In the making of Survivorman, there were so many things to consider. So in this case, I have 3 cameras operating. That was very typical of a Survivorman shoot, to have 3 cameras, sometimes 5 running. If I only had 2, that meant that one of my cameras was down, because I almost always had a minimum of 3. So we got 1 camera, 2 camera, 3 camera back there. We got a GoPro. So the GoPro, I'm not going to rely upon for good audio. You kind of can nowadays. They're much better. But they sucked at first. So the GoPro is getting my big wide shot, okay? And that is mostly there as a catch-all shot. It becomes a transitional shot that the editor can use if he really needs something, sort of like a last-ditch effort transitional shot. Or it's also, I'm going to go down this road a little bit. When you do that farther, that wider shot, or you do one really far away, you're giving the audience the perspective of where you're at. That worked a lot for Survivorman. Take a look at the shot from the last episode, Argentina. There's a long shot looking down at the little shack I was in when it got just pummeled with snow. And I had to climb a cliff to get that shot. Or in the Arizona episode, the shot while I'm doing, I think it was the hand drill. Again, climbed a small cliff to get that shot. Those shots say to you, the viewer, oh wow, okay, you can see where he is now, right? So in this case, it's just I'm in my little mini TV viewing home theater room. If everything is all tight and close and down on the actual action, you never get a chance to breathe, to sort of, oh, that's where they are, and you need those. Okay, so that now, and what I was talking about though was managing all of this. So that's my wide shot. Now I've got my 2 camera shots here. Okay, so 2 because you want to cut between the 2, especially if I'm doing a firebow or building a shelter. You need to be able to cut between those 2 because one shot just gets incredibly boring. Notwithstanding nowadays how these, you know, like almost one shot of somebody building something and over a long period of time, and I see 18 million views. I don't get it. But besides that fact that I don't get just one shot stuck on one thing for a long time, the reality is it's better to be able to break things up, plus if things glitch or whatever. Okay, so that means I've got 3 cameras, lenses cleaned, ready to go, settings set proper, all that sort of stuff. 3 camera batteries. Are they charged up? Will they last this entire duration of what I'm shooting? 3 camera, in this case now, cards on the inside collecting the data. Have those been formatted? Are they ready to go? And times 3. Then I have the microphone. 2 sets. I've got the receiver there and the transmitter here. 2 sets of batteries. Is the level good? Is the level right? Did I remember to put it on my shirt? So that little thing of forgetting to put it on my shirt has reminded me of all of that. And now imagine all of that in the middle of a jungle while it's pouring rain and you're getting bug bitten and you're 4 days without food and you don't quite have a story that you think you should have on caught on camera yet. It can be pretty nerve-wracking. But anyway, 18 years of it, I got through it. And here I am. So we are going to watch this episode, Temagami. What I started was, why did this episode come about? It came about because as a producer, I felt very kind of guilty well, more than anything, I was tasked, and financially, to deliver 2 episodes per location. So I did Mexico, I did Norway, and I went to Argentina. But in Argentina, if you watch the last director's commentary, I ran into all these issues that I had not planned on from a filmmaking perspective or a survival perspective. And it was basically threatening to shut everything down. And then my crew got trapped in all these situations. So we had this big thing to get out of there. I get back and I realize, I don't want to just split up what I got into 2 episodes. It's, as a producer, as a creator, it's kind of like a musical artist throwing 2 songs on their album that they know aren't that good, but they just got to fill the space. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to just make Argentina stretch out to a 90-minute length, to 2 separate episodes of 90 minutes when I really knew I only had a very strong 45-minute episode. Then I thought, okay, and this is me thinking as a producer, what am I going to do here? I've got to shoot another episode. And I can't afford to just spend a couple of $100,000 on flying to the Amazon jungle to shoot something cool. In a situation like that, I look at, well, what can I do expediently and on the cheap? I can just go up to Northern Ontario, right from where I live. I'll go up to my little cabin, my cottage, up on Rabbit Lake, and from there I'll head out, I'll go off into the woods, spend my week filming Survivorman. Very cheap, very inexpensive for me to do that. I knew the area, and there's still a ton of survival information that I can impart. Here was the problem. I had to get this done, and it was spring. And spring or early summer in Temagami, Ontario, in Canada is insanity when it comes to bugs. Black flies, mosquitoes, they're just insane. And I knew I was going to have to deal with that. Now, to finish the story is to say that for years, I avoided really buggy situations because I knew it would be just hell trying to film. But I didn't have an option. I had to get this episode done. And so off to Temagami I went, and off to Temagami right now. So that's the premise under which I went to film this episode. Starting from my cabin, I left from my cabin, I went off to a spot to film all of this. And I'll give some full disclosures later. Here we go. Let's start. Temagami, Ontario. It's a nature lover's paradise. I have a cottage here. I've canoed almost every river and lake within its boundaries. There are cottages dotted throughout the remote lakes, and there are logging roads and access roads winding through the rich and beautiful forest. So you would think that survival here would be easy. Yet 98% of people who end up lost do so within a mile of their own home or cottage. It's not difficult to get turned around and lost forever in a forest as thick and deceptively beautiful as this. I've taken myself into the middle of this wonderful region to attempt to survive in the ways of my original teachings. Survival in the Great Lakes Boreal Forest crossover region. You would think with all of the places around the world that I've survived in, deserts, jungles, the Arctic, even in a life raft on the ocean, surviving out here, Northern Ontario, my own backyard essentially, would be a bit of a walk in the park for me. We're about to find out. Yeah, see, look at that right there. 3 cameras to get that opening scene of me heading in. I didn't even bring in a crew. So usually I'll have that crew to shoot the opening and to shoot the time lapses and sunrises and sunsets. So in this case, I was basically didn't have the money to do this. And so in many ways, it was interesting. Doing this episode was like going all the way back to day 1 of doing Survivorman, where I had nobody else to help me with any of the beauty shots or anything like that. It was like it was just me, just me. Flying on an airplane, going to Arizona, going in to shoot everything, just me. Same situation here. So this was a throwback to the early days of Survivorman, even though this was well into many years of shooting Survivorman. I think this is 2000. Oh, I don't know what it would be. Maybe 14, something like that. We'll find out at the end. Well, there you go. That was actually the former fun of when I originally started shooting Survivorman. I think I'm not sure if I ever told this story, but I have lamented for years missing out on being able to shoot all of the beauty shots for the Survivorman series, because after the budgets got better, I brought along people like Max Atwood to shoot the beauty. So these are the transitional scenes, the birds and the trees and the wind and the sunrise. But it meant that I never had to shoot that stuff anymore, and I really lamented that. That was half the fun of being Survivorman in the early days, say season 1, where I shot everything myself. There were no extra camera people at all to get that stuff. So I had to budget in a day or 2 to just go out and shoot beautiful scenery to be my transition shots. And that's I guess what I'm doing here. I miss that. All right, before I do too much or travel too far, I want to do my zone of assessment check. So I'm in the middle of the Northern Ontario bush, and the first zone of assessment is zone number 1 is my body. And I've got this for clothing. All right, so let's listen up to this, okay? So I feel, again, like always, I have not seen this show in years, but I feel like I'm about to give a good description of this thing that I call Survivorman's zones of assessment. And this was how to handle an emergency situation. And it can work for a lot of different times in life. It doesn't have to be a wilderness survival situation. Zone of assessment number 1, what's on your body? What is the situation with your body, and what do you have in your pockets? Not much else this time. I've got a bit of an arsenal on my belt here. I've got a multi-tool and with a flint striker. I've got a belt knife, and I've got a new saw blade that I want to try out. My harmonica. So zone of assessment number 2 is immediately outside my body, which is my backpack. And number 3 is what's further beyond. And at this point, what I know I have further beyond is a lot of topography. Trees, hills, pine needles, and more mosquitoes than any human being could ever count. That's it. Just me. So actually, I didn't give a big, full, detailed description. Zone of assessment number 1, what's on your body? What do you have? Let's do it together. Okay, so you just crashed the canoe in the rapids and you're on the side of the riverbank. Canoe's gone downstream. Okay, so you're wet, you check your pockets, but you've got a power bar in there and a lighter. That's cool, but that's all. That's your only situation. Okay, so on assessment number 2, what's close at hand? You got a backpack. You check your backpack. It was the backpack with the tent, but no sleeping bags or anything like that. Just the tent and a pot. The kitchen kit, how about that? And a broken paddle, and nothing else around. But you got your buddy's there with you now. Your buddy is injured, got a broken ankle. Okay, so that's all right. So that's a problem. Zone of assessment number 3. What's further afield? So you remember that back upstream there was a cabin, like maybe a half a mile up. Also, you know that if you walk due east through the bush, that it should be only about 2 miles directly due east to the highway. So now you put all that together, 60 seconds, right? You know that you've got a power bar, a lighter, you've got to dry off because you're wet, you've got a backpack with a tent in it and cooking gear, and a broken paddle. Your buddy has a twisted ankle. There's a cabin back upstream about a half a mile, or you could walk straight out to the highway. You know all of that stuff in 60 seconds by doing the zones of assessment 1, 2, and 3. And what that does is it gives you an incredible amount of knowledge. With that knowledge, you now make a decision. Your decision is proactive, and you carry out proactive survival. I've written about it. I've talked about it. I think that is just a great way to settle yourself. I mean, I always say that the number 1 thing in survival is to remain calm, is to become calm. Take a knee. Well, when you do that little exercise, it calms you down so that you can make a proactive and proper and good decision. In the Northern Ontario bush. Though there's a lot of fresh water around, I've walked in with a small water bottle. Just not much else. Here, I don't feel like the dangers are very many at all. Oh, I know people really worry about bears. I mean, I'd be more worried about a moose in the rutting season anytime. I gotta be real careful I don't just turn myself around in circles. Try to stay walking in a relatively straight line if possible. I mean, one way to do that is to, I'll go around the left side of this tree. Keep moving. Go around the right side of the next tree. Left side, right side. And that can sometimes help to keep me going in a straight line. Another thing I can do is, while I walk, I've got the sunlight, and by the time... So listen up here. I think this was kind of when I realized, oh man, I need to make a whole new episode here. And I realized, well, I'll go to Temagami. I feel like I could then kind of saturate the show with survival tips, as opposed to, you know, something happening to me and living it out. It becomes more, I have a feeling that the rest of this episode is more of it's almost like just an instructional video, which is what I started in the first place. That was the whole point in the very beginning anyway. So I probably got, you know, happy with myself thinking, well, I'll go to Temagami. You know what, I'll pull out all the stops and I'll talk about all the different tips. Things that I've shown in other episodes scattered about here and there, but I can kind of put them all together in one place in Temagami. The day I know it's high in the sky, if I keep it
in a certain spot on the side of my head and keep walking, keeping it there, then I'm going pretty straight. Well, while I walk, I've been hoping to find maybe a stream or even puddles of water, something. I mean, this is Northern Ontario. It's the land of fresh water. I'm finding nothing, but this might be able to help me right here. This is all sphagnum moss. I've been told this has a natural antiseptic in it, and this will be my toilet paper for the time out here. It's actually what native cultures used to use as padding for baby diapers. And it's a good drink of water. And there's lots of it along here, so I can quench my thirst just by squeezing moss. One-stop shopping. My toilet paper and my bottle of water.
The thing with, with the water thing, it's just, like someone said, how could you not get some sort of parasite from drinking out of the hoof print of a cow in Argentina? Sometimes I just want to say, when you're out there enough and dealing with survival enough and the wilderness enough, you cannot scientifically tell by looking at water whether or not it has parasites or whatever in it. But you get a kind of a feel for it. And I know there's no basis in science in that, but you just get a kind of a feel for, if water's going to be good or not. I wouldn't quote me on that, and I wouldn't use that as your basis for whether or not water is good to drink. But in a survival situation, water is everything. And so you take a few more chances for the sake of not becoming dehydrated, which is a killer.
This plant here is, well, it's not much in terms of being a wild edible. I can't really eat it, but it's still good knowledge to have. It's called gold thread, but it's also called cankerroot. You can chew on this and keep it in my mouth. Chew, 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 chew. Never swallow. Spit it out. And the enzymes of this root work on the cankers and heal them. And it's incredible how well it works, actually. And see, oh, mosquito down my throat. When you're in a survival situation, sometimes it's not a bad injury that really puts you down. It's something as simple as having a mouthful of ulcers or a stomach ache or just a sprain or something like that.
So I'll hold it right there. So you notice the problem that my editor had there. That shot's blurry. I had inadvertently, this must be, I'm not sure, they might be the Canon cameras. The Canon cameras that I used for a while, I think it was the Canons anyway, had an ergonomic issue where there was a particular button for going to manual focus that if you grab the camera in a certain way, you'd hit that button, but you wouldn't know you went to manual focus. The sun's hitting the screen, there's all sorts of stuff going on, there's bugs, I got 3 other cameras going. I cursed that little button so many times in my filming of many episodes of Survivorman, to the point where I would duct tape over it just so I would see it and remember that stupid little button was there, because of so many times scenes like this. Now, because there were 2 other cameras, Barry could work and edit out for this particular scene, but there were times when we just lost the whole scene because I was filming maybe only with that one camera and I hadn't realized I'd hit the button. And it's very hard to tell when you're looking. See, right now I'm looking straight at the camera, but there's the screen over there, and if I look at the screen, I can see with this particular camera I'm using that it's focused in nicely. I can see there's a focus thing on my eye that reassures me that I'm focused. But with that that Canon couldn't do it. So frustrating. So that happens all the time, but we found ways around it, and really, because of the story content, you kind of accepted it. I don't think people even noticed that this would have been blurry.
Friends, in a survival situation. Mosquitoes. Now, if I can find a plant that will repel all these mosquitoes, that'd be helpful.
Searching for wild edible plants is a constant in survival. But you have to know exactly what you're looking for, or you risk sickness, even death.
Sometimes the time of year dictates what it is I can eat. This should be a good time of year for berries, but again, in a survival situation, the emphasis is on should be. Doesn't mean it is, and it doesn't mean I'll find them. Some bunch berries here.
That was interesting. Barry went to black and white. Barry Farrell is the editor. Went to black and white. And that was another little trick. It's like the scene is too good. We don't want to lose it, but the camera's not it's a little bit blurry. It's not a sharp image. And so sometimes you just sort of fool the viewing audience by, well, go to black and white. And it just sort of, it serves a couple of purposes. One, artistically, if it's artistically good to do, we always had to have that as our bar. So artistically, you'd go to black and white. That looks pretty great, and it fits with the scene. And then it would also help you out of potentially having a blurry camera or something like that.
Here that are almost starting to get ripe. If I can find some red ones, I've got myself a meal. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, I think I found myself a fast meal here. There's a plant called wild cucumber. Another plant called starflower, and they're side by side, and here they are. There's some starflower, but I think I might have found some wild cucumber. If I did, that's a beautiful thing. I'm gonna check this out. It's wild cucumber. It looks like I've got myself a meal. I'm really carefully peeling away from the tuber. That's awesome. Oh. And it tastes just like it. Oh, that's good. Mmm. There's 4 or 5 more here.
I'm just going to stop it right there. I had been talking recently with some people about that. The question came up as to, how do you let the audience know that I'm completely alone? And this was how, exactly like this. Let you see the camera. Let you see the camera get fudged with. Early on, I have told the story before where early on my original editor fought me on it, really fought me on it. He didn't want me, it's like, you don't, because he was of the older school mind, even though I was a young guy, and he was just like, you don't do that. You don't show the other camera. I'm like, no, you don't understand. For what I'm doing, for where I am, for this story, this is a place we're going to break down that fourth wall, as they say. We're going to break it down and show people that I'm setting up cameras, because that is part of the full story. And he couldn't get that. We argued about it. Ended up having to fire him because he just wouldn't do it. It was crazy. I was like, well, pick your battles, man. It's like, pick my battles? I'm the producer. So in any event, that was really important to me. And you can see how often I show it. You can see the GoPro. That's an old style GoPro still. You can see that on my chest, but anyway.
It's sweet tasting. That is delicious.
We have since, not far from here, filmed my series Wild Harvest. If you haven't checked out my new series Wild Harvest, which you can see on this YouTube channel in the playlists, or you can see it on a number of different channels on television, but in the United States on PBS, and as well soon there's going to be another network, but in Canada on the Weather Network and on Blue Ants Network, Cottage Life Television. If you haven't seen Wild Harvest and you like Survivorman, you got him. In fact, check it out.
Woohoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients?
Hey there! Oh! Go on!
Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
Pretty cool, eh? Yes, that's Les Stroud's Wild Harvest. We just finished shooting season 3. So 11 new episodes to launch for you. We're very excited about, and working on getting season 4 going. In fact, I'll stop it right there and do a little personal talking. In fact, when it comes to Wild Harvest, that is our recipe book for season 1. And we've got season 2 and season 3 recipe books coming out. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book with all of our recipes and photographs from all of our episodes. So this is available right now on the website, lesstroud.ca. Go to the shop page, check it out. But that is a very cool, very, very cool recipe book from Wild Harvest.
It's got to be wild cucumber. But there's a plant here. It's the same plant. And it looks like a different growth. and I'm not certain, all of a sudden. I haven't seen, really, ever before, a full, mature wild cucumber, right? Just in the books kind of thing. It's been a long time since I've seen one in the wild, and here I am eating one, and it tastes like one, but this part of it, the way it looks like this, I've never seen before. So here's the part that I saw, but then there's this stem that comes up, and these guys, probably a wild plant expert looking at it going, yeah, that's wild cucumber, eat away, it's awesome. Or someone going, no, that's the poisonous such and such, don't touch it. But I just went from certain to uncertain. I hate that feeling. Well, I've eaten it now, so I won't eat any more till I find out how I feel.
I would tell, I take the odd bit of flack with a situation like this. And it's funny how often people really didn't quite pick up on when I was, in some ways, when I was just joking. Like eating shaggy manes, I think it was, somewhere. And I think I did, like, I hope that's what it is. But it was with a twinkle in my eye. I was like, yeah, I know what it is, sort of thing. But people, it's incredible. Hard to say, so many different people post and watch your stuff and post things. And sometimes you just want to go, do you not know what I do? Or did you not watch the whole show? But in fact, of course, I am not going to put anything in my mouth unless I do truly know. Now, in this situation, that was real. I thought for the time that I was eating it, I absolutely knew this was wild cucumber until I saw the other plant. And so that is actually kind of what's kind of cool about something like this and this kind of storytelling is you're seeing me go through that confusion right on the spot in real time. I don't have to replay it because I'm filming while I'm doing it. And I loved when true reality like that would happen and I could catch it on camera. I've always been a fan, if you have the experience, of mobile, proactive survival. Moving on, looking around the next corner. Maybe I'll find a cabin, a vehicle, even a road. Staying put in forest this thick just never seems like the right option to me. Not if I have a choice.
This is yet another way to get some water. No sphagnum moss here, just this punky, rotten wood. I'm gonna reach into the center of it here. It's all soaking wet, and this is good water to drink. I can just keep hydrating myself as I walk through the bush, constantly putting liquid into my body because it's hot here. The mosquitoes are bad, the heat's intense, the humidity's thick, but there's not much to drink where I am right now, so this'll do it.
Now that is how you find something that you can squeeze water out of for real. Ontario, Canada offers a great example of that opportunity, squeezing sphagnum moss or these rotted, punky logs, unlike faking it with elephant dung and having the crew soak elephant dung with water and then squeezing and drinking that to fake a scene that is something that you can't actually do in Africa. But this is real, and that's something I'm now that I'm watching this, I'm realizing I must have had a real good time. The bugs are awful, but this is such a throwback to my early survival days before Survivorman, learning and training in survival methods, that I'm just able to constantly walk through the Ontario forest and show you all these skills. I come alive. If I were to teach a course tomorrow in Ontario, I'd probably nerd out completely and just come alive.
Good fresh water. I keep seeing blueberries here, but unfortunately, I don't see them in season yet. All I see is the plant itself. That doesn't mean it's not useful, because I can actually make blueberry tea out of the leaves if I find a way to boil water. So often people think, well, you can just find some berries and live off raspberries and blueberries. Boy, if I was in that area in July or August, that's what I'd be doing. you've got to find those big patches of blueberries and raspberries, and they might be many miles in between them. So it's blueberry tea, I guess.
I have to always, always think about getting material for fire starting. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to make this point here, but when I used to take out courses in survival, if you're walking along and let's say you're going to be doing a survival weekend, like let's say you're taking a class, you should be gathering your fire starting materials the second you get out of your car and leave the parking lot at the top of the trail. Right away, fill up your pockets with things that are dry and that they're going to work for a fire later on. Do not wait. You always, in the beginning, the common mistake to make is you'll gather your stuff when you get there, when you get to the location where you're going to be spending the night. You can get to a location like that and there's not a birch tree for miles. So you're not getting birch bark for starting fire, maybe something else, but maybe where you are is damp and wet. So right away, you start gathering.
Now this is good birch bark. This definitely falls under the category of gather it while I see it. I don't want to go all the way around the tree and pull off too much and go too deep because that actually kills the tree. But in this case, I'm just taking just the dead stuff that's on the outside, that's all. This way, I can gather the bark I need and feel like I'm not damaging the forest at the same time.
Something I did a lot for Survivorman, was just get in that point about how to responsibly gather wild plants. I do that with Wild Harvest all the time. We talk a lot about reciprocity and helping wild plants to thrive. The way you harvest is what does that, Same thing here in survival, Sure, I need birch bark. If it were life and death, I wouldn't care. I've been a long time since I said this, but if I was out on an island, let's say, and I could get off the island because a little raft or canoe or something, I'd burn the island down if it meant it was going to save my life because someone would come and get me. You chop down a hydro pole because you're way out in the middle of nowhere, but there's a hydro line going through. These things, as the saying goes, I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. That's just survival.
I just keep gathering as I go.
But because I was filming an episode of Survivorman, I could afford the opportunity to throw in the environmentally conscious instruction with the survival instruction at the same time.
I hope that I don't start throwing up because what I thought was wild cucumber was something else. Oh, look at this. See.
It's remarkable how little music I'm hearing in this. Interesting. Not sure why that would be, but Barry is not using very much music in this cut at all. It might have been that, along the way, as we're creatively thinking about how to deliver the show to you, we might have said, let's start backing off on the music. Let's let the scenes really hold you. If you think about, a little story on that. The scene in the Amazon rainforest where the jaguar chases me out of the forest, more or less? I sat with Brian Eimer down in Toronto at Images and Sound, working on the audio for that. We tried a dozen different cues of music to make it work for the drama. And then I'm sitting there and I said, you know what? Play it without any music. So let me look at it, right? And I knew Brian was thinking, okay, I'm thinking about what music I'd be able to fit in. He ran it without any music and realized that's better. That is way more dramatic. In fact, Luke, show that scene where I'm ending my time in the Amazon jungle because of the jaguar.
I should say I wasn't really expecting to do this. I have to do this. All I did was go out for a pee, and not very far from my hut was a jaguar. I watched him for a while. He watched me. I yelled. I used my whistle, and unfortunately, he didn't even flinch. So it's getting dark really fast. I know this probably seems a little contrived, but trust me, it ain't. I brought my spear with me and my pack. That's all I could really grab. I left all the camera gear there. I just threw my pack on. I figure, well, maybe a spear is better than a machete. can't see a single thing. I've just got the screen flipped around so I can see where I'm going a bit. What bothers me about it is that it didn't run away when I tried to scare it. I mean, I spent a lot of time in black bear and wolf territory. Wouldn't even worry a bit. And but if a bear doesn't scare easily, then you have to be concerned. I've done my time in grizzly territory, but there's just something about a big cat who's interested in you that makes me nervous. I think I left him behind in the jungle.
So you see, no music to drive the drama, just the drama itself, just what was going on itself. And it might be here that Barry just decided, you know what, we can back off a bit. We don't need so much music.
This is when I wish I knew more about mushrooms, because if this was edible, well, that's a nice bulk of food there, but I have no idea. And learning mushrooms is extremely difficult. You have to be shown by an expert. You can't do it with a book at all. The only real mushroom I know that I'm confident picking is the shaggy mane, grows in my backyard. The problem with eating mushrooms, if I eat it and I'm wrong, I could die.
As they say, you can eat every type of mushroom once. In fact, I do know a few more mushrooms now, but the way I do it now is I'll go to a mushroom course, like the one down in Brookings, Oregon. They do a mushroom weekend every year, and I'll go down and you can take courses and stuff. And I go down, determined to learn one mushroom. The person will probably teach 25 mushrooms on the walk, but I want to zero in on one. I want to get to know one. And coming up in season 3 of Wild Harvest, we actually feature some boletes, we feature chicken of the woods, and we feature milkcap. Bleeding milkcap. Really interesting stuff. So you got to watch for those episodes.
Very dangerous. Talking about it and knowing it are two different things.
This is wandering survival. Pushing onwards, always looking for the right place to spend the night. This is the way it normally goes.
Every once in a while, I just find myself in these pockets where mosquitoes are incredibly intense.
Now I'm hearing why Barry probably didn't want to put in too much music. The sounds of the spring birds and the mosquitoes are constant. And I think, if I remember correctly, he probably said, let's go with that.
Interesting phenomenon that's happened with me, mosquitoes, is that over the years of doing survival and guiding, I've been bitten so many times, and I had to remain stoic because maybe I was guiding teenagers or something like that, and I didn't want to have them panicking. And so the mosquitoes, I'd have 6, 7 mosquitoes on my arms biting me, and there we go. They would just bite and fill up on blood. And then I began to notice after a while that...
Before I tell you what I began to notice after a while, when I do that, like for real with people, it's crazy how people freak out. Like people go, whoa, get that mosquito. And they're like, they jump up to get them. I'm like, well, it's okay, it's okay. Just watch, I'm trying to show my little mosquito trick and people can't handle it. They just like, they have to kill that mosquito on my arm. It's hilarious.
I wasn't getting bites anymore. I mean, nothing, not a single bump. So this guy's gonna bite me. He's filling up with blood right now. Nothing's gonna be there. Nothing to itch, nothing to scratch. She goes on to make more mosquito babies. There she goes.
So, true story. I have been bitten so much. I mean, I had to go through torture to get to that, but and mostly it was as an outdoor guide. And honestly, it came about by guiding teenagers because I would be guiding all these teenagers, especially a lot of teenage girls. And if I panicked, they would absolutely panic. They had low tolerance for the bugs. So I would be carrying a canoe or a pack or something, and the mosquitoes would be biting me, and I would remain really stoic to try to teach to the teenage kids, look, this is just relax, don't freak out, you don't have to panic, it's just mosquitoes. But because of doing that year in, year out, I had been bitten so much that now, it's also black flies, by the way, and those of you in Ontario, Canada, you know what I mean when I say black flies. Also, if you're in Quebec or Manitoba, I think Maine, Minnesota, black flies. So I would get bitten. So I still get bitten. They still bug me while I'm out there. But in a way, not as much because I know I won't have any bites on my skin. Isn't that crazy? But after years of getting, calamine lotion and itchy and everything, nothing at all. It's to this day. I still get bugged by no-see-ums. I don't like those. But yeah, I guess it's just my body developed. There's a doctor out there that knows what happened, but my body developed a way of handling that toxin, and I just never get a single bump.
Fat with my blood.
It's not that the mosquitoes don't drive me insane. They do. But just knowing I no longer have to endure itchy welts all over my body is an incredible psychological comfort.
Just still looking for a place to sit and sleep the night out. I think I've made a drastic error. I should have started looking for a place to be a lot earlier. Maybe even built a shelter. I've just been going and going. It's too late to do a lot of things. I'm just gonna find a place to sit out. I'm getting too tired to do anything else.
Surviving like this is kind of like an adventure race. I just don't stop. I keep going. It's actually so much closer to any real lost victim's reality.
So I'm just going to stop it. So that shot's actually, full disclosure, not far from my cabin at all, like what little mini walking distance. So it's a shot that I got at another time, like maybe after this, or maybe the week before, when I was getting transitional beauty shots. So I literally was like, well, I'm just going to go out from my cottage and get a whole bunch of, why? Because it's Temagami, and it indicates and shows Temagami. And so that's why I used to love getting the beauty shots. So much easier. I could go anywhere, drive somewhere, go to a beautiful lookout point, get some drone shots now. And by the way, this is before we had drones that we owned and used. So there's not a single drone shot in this episode. Isn't that interesting?
Then building elaborate shelters or traps.
Not getting myself prepared for tonight was just stupid. I just kept walking until I realized I was walking into the dark. I've got no shelter. And the mosquitoes are just terrible. First night out, and I don't know that I'm gonna sleep at all. Ow! Ow. The hell just bit me? That hurt. Ow. Mosquitoes just didn't seem this bad during the day. They're intense now. Oh, God.
A fire would have been smart, yet I simply overlooked making one. Too busy pushing on in the warm weather.
That sounds like rain.
So why do say, God, survival guy watch us go, oh, man, you're so stupid. Let me remind you again that a lot of what I did in Survivorman was to take the role of the regular person. If I play the role of being a guru and knowing everything to do, then it's not that, it wouldn't be very realistic. And so you learn more from just making the mistakes that the average person would make. Well, most people, if they're lost hiking around, that first night, they end up sitting by a tree. When I was actually training the military at one point, I wanted to take the troops and say, I just want to have them sit by a tree all night long. That's it. Just sit it's misery. That sounds like, well, what's so hard about that? You curl up a little bit, No, it's absolutely miserable to not set yourself up some kind of shelter situation or bed or something like that. Try it sometime. If you want to train in survival, try just sitting at the base of a tree all night. Even in warm clothing. I would challenge you to do that. Warm clothing, go sit at the base of a tree all night. It's miserable. And it teaches you an awful lot about how to stay warm and why and how to build shelters.
That is rain. There's rain coming in. Great. It's just sprinkling for the moment, so. Ow! Right in my eye. Hear the storm coming. That makes these massive pine trees are like lightning rods. So I'm really sitting in, the worst possible place. for lightning coming through. Out in the rain getting drenched, or dry here and getting electrocuted.
If you didn't hear what I said there, I said or stay here and dry and get electrocuted, because bottom line is, yeah, it's still a true, it's not even an adage, it's a truism that, you know, when lightning is coming in, you got to stay away from the highest point of land, or the things that jut out from land and become the highest point, and that is going to be a big, tall cedar tree. And yet in the rain, it's a great place to be under, because it's incredible how dry you can stay at the base of a tree when it's raining. But you have to figure, is there lightning or isn't there?
Impossible to sleep like this.
Lost victims are motivated to keep moving by many different things. Fear, longing to see their family again, even embarrassment. Whatever it takes, sometimes you have to just keep moving.
Well, it only rained a little bit off and on through the night. Looks like it's gonna clear up here today too, so who knows? This time of year, it rains and then it stops and then it's sunny and then it rains again and thunderstorms. You get everything. I'm just gonna keep moving and see what I find. You know, for years, I have traveled with a harmonica, and I've played it at night to bring me comfort and keep me company, especially around the fire. But the actual and real use that I have put it to in any survival situation, especially when I have to go through woods like this, is to play while I walk. Basically, it scares away anything that I don't want to run into. Now, I don't know, you're probably thinking bears, and that's probably true. I don't really want to run into a black bear. 99.99999% of the time, if I see one, he's going to be running like a shot, or she. And I've had them where I've come upon a mother and the cubs run up the tree and the mother takes off and I'm standing at the bottom of the tree looking at the cubs. That's usually what happens with a black bear. That said, I play this harmonica while I walk and I don't have to test my theory.
That's a truism. In fact, it's one of the first things I ever did. My very first sort of long-term survival was a 10-day survival thing up in northern Ontario when I was learning, when I was training. And I was going to be joining the crew late. So I had to find my way in through the woods to where they were going to be. And I used my harmonica to go through very thick woods. I would play that harmonica because there's a lot of bear in that area. So it actually is a technique that works pretty well.
You can see clearly that there's an opening up there. I can see the water from here. So now I can base my travels on the lake, follow the shore, or do what I need to do to get out of here. You come with me. So here's some berries. It's a poisonous look-alike. This is the Clintonia borealis. It looks so much like blueberries. The plant doesn't look like blueberries at all, but if you know what a blueberry looks like, but the berries do, and if you were confused, and I've seen people that are by this plant, you could try eating it, and it's poisonous. I better get myself set up before it gets too dark. It's gonna be too late otherwise.
So what time is the right time to start setting up your shelter? Honestly, depending on when the sun's going to go down, anywhere between noon and 2 p.m., that early. If you really are going to build a shelter and you think you're going to spend a while in there, that's when you have to start building a shelter, which is why traveling and building shelters, it's almost impossible. To do both, it becomes almost impossible. You can't travel all day and then expect to build a shelter to be in that night. You either build a shelter and stay in it and stay warm and dry and comfortable and stay where you are and be rescued, or you travel onwards and you take what you get when it comes to bedding down every single night. But doing both, there's not enough time. Unless you're going to stop every day at noon. You might be up early, and you're up pretty early and on your way by 5 a.m., so 7 hours of hiking, that could work really well. But then you have to spend many hours building a shelter, which is exhausting work. By the way, a lot of you are leaving posts saying how you've been watching my work since you were young, and that is so often now. More and more, I'll be talking to someone who'll be between the ages of 25 and 30 and 40, and it's like, dude, I grew up on watching you, man, with my father, my mother, my sister, whatever, my brother, and it's really a thrill. I love seeing those comments. I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful that you guys are enjoying these director's commentaries. We're walking through all of these episodes. I'm going to do Beyond Survival. I'm going to do Survivorman Bigfoot. Walking through all of the Survivorman episodes right now. Season 6 is next. But yeah, I'm really just, in the Christmas spirit since I'm doing this pre-Christmas, saying, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you all, and whatever your holidays might be or not be this season, so to speak. I hope you have a great time. And again, I'm just thanking you for all of the kind comments that I see. I do read, I do go through, I do see your comments. It is me commenting on your comments. It's not somebody else. It's not somebody in my office, so to speak. So, yeah, just want to say thank you for that.
Every time I think I'm going through to a clearing, I'm not.
The assumption is that jungles are thick and forests are walkable. Yet sometimes, it's very much the opposite.
All right, there we go. This overhang, and knowing that the northwest wind is coming from in behind this rock, this will do the trick tonight.
Oh, full disclosure, at this point I could walk to my cottage. I could walk to my cabin. So I've said before that with Survivorman, there are some times when I've shot the episode and I was like, if I had to, I could walk out. If I had to, I could paddle out. I'd say 85 to 90% of the time, I couldn't. There's no way I'm getting out of there until 7 days later when the crew comes to pick me up. Once in a while, oh yeah, if I needed to, I could walk out for a couple of miles, get to a dirt road or what have you. And this was one of the cases. I could walk through the woods and get to very easily and get to my cottage at this point. And there were also other cottages around. But I was there to be Survivorman. I was there to stay out and survive overnight. It's not like I hadn't done it hundreds of times. So I just stayed out and did this show the way you're watching it now. But yeah, full disclosure, yes, I was in Temagami, and I could have made my way to a cabin, a cottage, or a road, or paddled out eventually.
Maybe if I put up a few poles, get a little fire going this time as well, help keep the mosquitoes away. All right, I gotta get busy, because before long that sun's gonna set again. It's one of the reasons why I love having a handsaw like this. Don't get me wrong, an axe is great too. I love having an axe, but an axe is heavy to carry. Okay, that's one. 40 more. The principle behind shelter building, one of them is try to use stuff that's in the vicinity to make your shelter. It's the way igloos are made, really. You think that, they put all the blocks on top of the snow? Nope, the blocks are dug out to make a big hole, and that's half the igloo right there. Then the blocks are put up over top of that hole. You scoop out and put on top. That's some of the, hopefully most of the grunt work done. I'm gonna go up by the rock and take stock and see what I've got. Well, it's not much. Probably one of the lamest shelters I've ever made, but believe it or not, half of it's made for me because of this rock. So really, I think I'll be fine here if it comes on to rain. And better than that, there'll be some air moving here to hopefully keep the mosquitoes down. That's a big concern for me.
One of the things I love to do if I go out, with friends, whatever, is to nerd out a little bit and sort of stop in the middle of a trail walk and go, if you had to survive anywhere, where would it be? And it's great. It's really interesting to see the answers that come about, but I'll give you the answers. The bottom line from me is big rocks, very helpful. So if you can see a spot where there's a big rock that you can build up against, hugely helpful as a fire reflector. But the second or maybe the first most important thing for me, firewood. how much firewood is close at hand. That matters an awful lot because you're going to need that fire. You're going to have a fire going. And if you can have the place that looks great to build a shelter, there's no firewood at all. It's all wet. It's all too big. A lot of times that happens. The firewood's too big. So where can I easily grab fire material for a number of days? And then the next one would be what I use for bedding. Well, honestly, the easiest bedding to get, in my opinion, is either in, say, like an oak forest where there's just a ton of fallen leaves that are easy to scoop up. That's great. You can do a lot with that. Or in the boreal forest or the temperate forests of North America, small spruce trees. And when I say small, I mean like 6, maybe 10 feet maximum. Christmas trees. That's what you want. You want Christmas trees. The big trees are of no use to you at all. They're too big and the branches are spread far out and they're up high. You need Christmas. If you can see a forest of Christmas trees, that is a ton of great bedding material.
Because last night was brutal. All right, I want to get a fire going.
This is very much a land flowing with fresh, drinkable water, which thankfully takes that need out of the equation of survival. So with water and shelter looked after tonight, I won't sit out in the dark without a fire going.
So I'm pretty certain that Barry has grayscaled, made black and white, all of this footage because it creates a mood, it creates an ambiance. If you're looking at beautiful, pretty footage, it makes you relax a little more. It's like, oh, that looks okay, that looks inviting. But with it grayed out, it's all of a sudden it's like, you know, that looks a little spooky, it looks a little scary. I don't think I'd want to be there. And that's just the brilliance of Barry's work as an editor in terms of creating a color palette for Survivorman.
Well, one thing I've always been a fan of is palette, and that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that Survivorman had is every episode was a palette, and that palette was musical and it was also color, and just the style of how things would do. Like the darker something would be, it would be like a film noir type of feel to it. So we would apply that type of sensibility to how it was edited and how the camera would move or not move.
One of the first survival skills I ever learned in my life, right here.
Getting a fire going is a lot like a cooking show. You gotta have all your ingredients laid out. In a birch tree, I found this fungus. See that? This stuff can take a spark. I'm going to hope that I can make that happen here. I've never been shown how to do this, so I don't even know if this is the right thing to do, but my gut says chew it up a little bit. Look at that, that's amazing. Can't believe how well that works. And I had no idea it was going to work this well. I've never tried this stuff before.
Which, by the way, was always a big thing for me with Survivorman. If I was going to do a new skill or something new that I'd not really done before, I loved to do it on camera while you're watching it for the very first time. That way, if I fail, it's real. You see real failure. And it's like, you see, this wasn't the YouTube video that I saw said I could do this, you know. It wasn't easy at all to do. That happened to me several times, actually. But if I get it for real, then my joy in absolutely getting it for real is very palpable. You see it on screen. You can feel it. You can hear it. Hey, everyone. Allow me to interrupt myself. I don't really like hawking merchandise and swag, but you guys do ask all the time where you can get certain items. For example, check this out. Hennessy hammock. I put a lot of time and effort into designing this hammock with Hennessy. It's their top hammock. It's an amazing, beautiful, comfortable hammock to enjoy for all of your adventures out there. So just check it out. It's got a full-size tarp, which is a big thing for me. It's got insulation, and I love it. So I've got the Hennessy hammocks. Of course, for years I've been in a phenomenal relationship with Hella of Norway, Hella Knives. And this is our signature knife, of course, the Temagami. These knives are handmade. In fact, I've been there to this very ancient factory where I don't know how many, it's well over 100 years that they've been operating, and every single handle is handmade. All of the grinding, everything is done by hand. And these knives are absolutely beautiful. I also now have a brand new relationship And you will see these items, new foraging tools that I'm designing with LT Wright Knives out of Ohio. And also, Chef Paul Rogalski of Wild Harvest has the signature Chef Paul Rogalski kitchen knife collection. Those are a big thrill to me, to have these beautiful items that we spent years designing, and I still have them available for you. However, if you want to go more the route of just enjoying the Survivorman legacy, if you will, then of course, go to my website, lestroud.ca, go to the shop page. Right there, you've got everything. All the swag, all the merch, such as my manual on survival. This is if you want to get into survival. This book is meant to be a way to walk you through step by step, because I deal a lot more with concepts than I do with specifics, because that's really important. Once you understand the concepts of fire by friction, for example, you can do it depending on where you are, because I can't give you the advice on how to do it here in Canada and hope that it's also going to work down in the jungle. Things are different. So I've always been very proud of this book, Survive. So that is my survival manual. Also, if you weren't aware, I've got the book Will to Live. I wrote this book well, it's kind of for a lot of fun. I took my 10 favorite survival stories, such as Chris McCandless Into the Wild or the Robertson family and the life raft, and I basically dissect them with this book. I tear apart the story, I go through everything, and I even give them a little bit of a grade on how I thought they did. So I really enjoyed writing this book. It's a real easy read, it's a fast read, but I think there's a lot of insight there for you into all of these different examples of people who have either survived or perished. Speaking of books, so honored, so thrilled, so proud that Wild Outside, my first children's book, has won the Yellow Cedar Award, Best Nonfiction Children's Book in Canada for ages 7 to 14. I tell stories from Survivorman, lessons learned during those expeditions and adventures, and there are even activities they can do in the out of doors. So there you go. My new book, my children's book, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman, has just won the Yellow Cedar Award, and I'm up for another award yet. And in keeping with stuff that's going on right now, we are also up for an award for our Season 1 recipe book from the series Wild Harvest. And if you've never caught the series Wild Harvest, check this out.
Woohoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients?
Hey there. Oh, go on.
Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
Tell me that doesn't look awesome. 2 seasons right now, 26 episodes. In the United States, it's on PBS stations. You can also get it on this YouTube channel. In Canada, Cottage Life TV. In Sweden and Norway, on Matt Cannellan. It's on National Geographic. Asia, which includes China and India. So my Wild Harvest series is playing around the world now, and we, with every single season, create a recipe book based on the recipes that we show you in the actual shows themselves. So that's Wild Harvest. And of course, if you want the DVD, you can get that on this website as well, lestroud.ca. And let's not forget too, that I'm a musician. The CDs themselves are available on the website. The next release will be the re-release of the Mother Earth album on vinyl. But go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, or on my website. You can go to the shop page, you can pick up all of my CDs. So this is the last one. This is my 20th anniversary selection. Check it out. Every film I've ever made, 76 films in all of the Survivorman, Bigfoot, Beyond Survival, music documentaries, one-off films such as the award-winning La Loche about the school shooting up in Canada and a healing canoe trip. This is my 20th anniversary, 76 films. And people that have picked this up have raved about it. And I'm really proud that I can say I've got 20 years of anything, to be honest with you. That's available for you as well on that Les Stroud shop page. Okay, that's me hawking my stuff. Back to the video.
just gonna try, I'm just experimenting. Let's try this. Let's try breaking a bit off into the cedar bark. Some of the coals. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. All right, yeah, now we're talking. This stuff is fantastic, this tinder fungus. Wow, I've never seen anything like that before. All right, so I'm gonna save this tinder fungus because that's just awesome.
And I should have seen that many times in my life, but it was one of those things that I learned about, I knew about, I heard about, people talked about. I just never had cause to incorporate it into any of the survival training I had done years before doing Survivorman. I just, for whatever, maybe that I had charred cloth with me. Maybe I was going to use my flint striker. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I never had to mess around with the tinder fungus that grows on the side of a birch tree. And this was the first time. That was one of the wonderful things about Survivorman. It really forced me into dealing with all of these different skills that were available and possible that maybe I had avoided in the past.
This is some other birch fungus, but the beauty of this is it's said anyway that the smoke from this fungus helps to keep mosquitoes away. So I'm just gonna let this guy hover right there. This is gonna be a much better night than last night.
The small plastic bottle I've been using to collect water can now be put to a second important use. One that for many lost victims, if they knew this technique, could save their life. Well, let's try this. I have no wire, no string, but I usually, when I get out into the wilderness, make it so that my belt is actually a rope. I've done that for years, and I can say that has come in handy more times than I can count. Here goes nothing. All right, so I'm just gonna put some blueberry leaves in there now. Get that back on the flames. Now, we watch water boil.
This is suspenseful. I can't remember if this works or not.
I'm surviving in the Canadian Northern Forest, where from 1 hour to the next, I could go from a manageable existence to a horrific endurance test.
This may not look it, and I might not feel it in a couple hours, but right now, it's actually comfortable. Just by simply setting up under this rock, the warmth of a fire, and to have the mosquitoes gone. And then combine that with hot water
Ah,
that I've been able to boil in plastic.
so it did work. Very cool.
It's unbelievable.
Something I mentioned might have been in the Mexico one. That, the thing about drinking hot water in a survival situation where you're cold, you're wet, you're hungry, you're tired, is it's so reminiscent of civilization that it just makes you feel human again. And being able to feel human in a survival situation is vital for your mental well-being, because you feel like an animal for a long time. You're filthy and sweaty and all the rest of it. And just to get a little, semblance of normalcy where I feel human again, it just feels so good, can improve your circumstances so much because it strengthens your well-being. Your mind becomes better and stronger.
Oh man, that's good. Having hardly slept at all in a couple of days, this night's gonna help.
The danger of settling into a place that is kind of okay for survival is that I can wait too long before I make my next move, and my energy becomes depleted too much to head out. So I'm going to keep moving. In the course of moving on, I can make things much worse for myself, too. Everything in a survival situation is an important judgment call.
Oh, okay. Oh boy. See bear scat here. And that's precisely why I play the harmonica while I go through. I'm gonna make it to the clearing. I can see the clearing and water. Ow! Ow! Oh, hey. That looks good. I see water. Haha. I see food. Now I see why. I'm starting to see different signs of animals. Everything comes down here to feed, including me. Oh man. You won't believe what I just found. I wouldn't expect to find this down here. And I did. And there's lots of it. Oh, I gotta show you this. This is one of my favorite finds when it comes to looking for food in the northern forest like this. This is called creeping snowberry. It's these tiny little white guys. You just lift up the plant like this to expose the berries.
Because of shooting the episode, the Survivorman episode here, and finding this spot through just sort of traipsing around for this week of survival, I ended up coming back to this location. You can see it in season 1 of of Wild Harvest. I came back and gathered creeping snowberry from these exact same plants again. I said, I got to show you a spot that I found when I was filming Survivorman, Paul. And I went back there and I did a bunch of gathering. So this is where I originally found the spot, though.
Oh, what a score. So this is my first little treat of the marsh. My second bigger treat is out there.
The cattail has 2 benefits, both as a food source and also as a fire starter. It grows throughout the world, and it's an incredible filter of pollution or otherwise contaminated water. But the best thing about it for survival is that it usually grows in abundance.
There's the kind of chunk I'm looking for right there. Peel the layers away. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. This one's nice and tender.
Also featured on Wild Harvest, cattail. In fact, in several episodes. It's such an amazing wild edible that whenever we were around it or near it, I had to include it, bring it to the kitchen for Chef Paul Rogowski to play with, and he made some amazing meals of cattail. So, got to check that series out.
All right, I'm going to keep eating more of these cattails and get myself filled up. There's a lot of them, easy to grab. And tasty. And this is super calorie efficient eating in a survival situation. It's being able to come to a place like this. Just pick, eat, pick, eat, pick, eat. And the creeping snowberries were just a huge bonus. All right, I'm gonna take the next hour or so and just sit here and eat. And then head back through and see what's up around the corner. This is just real.
What was really funny is that people have watched this episode who are in Temagami, who know Temagami, and they'll go, I know where you were, man. You were right, such and such. And they're so far off. They're literally miles away from where I actually was. It's like one swamp doesn't look like another swamp, right? It's like a small swamp with cattail. It could be anywhere in Temagami, but people swear, it's like, yeah, I know where you are. You were right at the road, which I wasn't, but they would just say that. That said, towards the ending, I do get real close to the road.
Really weird. I see something on the ground. I bent down to pick it up. Yeah. One
wild blueberry. It's absolutely a blueberry. And there's not a single blueberry plant around me. So just here, in the middle of the swamp, there's one wild blueberry laying on the ground. How does that happen? I don't know. I guess maybe a bird had it in its beak and was flying overhead and dropped it. Dropped it down for me.
Ooh, sinking in. Drop the camera in. The one camera that's not waterproof. That's what I want. That's an amazing fire starter.
What do you look for in a survival situation? Do you try to find shelter, food, water? No. What you really are on the search for is a way out. Rescue, salvation, human activity, anything to take you out of your misery, because there is nothing about surviving that isn't miserable.
After a while, you know you could be getting close to something when you start to see signs of humans. Look at this old junk lying around here. Coming up to the edge of the shore here. Again, just looking around.
You gotta be kidding me. It is. Check this out.
Look at that. Unbelievable. Now, I myself have stored more than one canoe in my lifetime. My father and I used to hide boats in different places, old fishing lakes and spots that were our favorites, and I've probably come across at least 4 or 5 boats and canoes in my lifetime, just traveling around, being in the bush. And here we go. No more bush hiking for me. I wonder if there's a paddle, though. I don't see one. I'm just gonna angle this so that I can hide from the rain if it comes in. It's be a nice sheltered spot.
And yes, by the way, I do now still have that canoe.
You never know in a survival situation what you're gonna find. A cabin, a cottage, a big cave, or rock overhang. In this case, a big old canoe. I don't have a paddle. Really tough to make a paddle, but what I can make is a pole. If you want to rain now, you can. Won't bother me.
Whenever I find signs of human activity, it makes me feel more up. The energy from the find is a psychological boost and motivates me to get active.
I think still one of my favorite things with tinder is mixing and matching all the different tinders together. Birch bark, pine needles, sometimes cedar bark. But to set all of this off, it's going to be the cattail fluff. The trick to the cattail is getting it as fluffy as possible. The fluffier I can make it, the better. The more likely it will be to take a spark. Look at that. Now, come on, catch, catch, catch. There we go. The birch bark takes the flame from the cattail. Cattail's already gone out. The birch bark takes the flame. Pine needles come over top. So far tonight, I'm getting lucky with the mosquitoes. They're not too bad. Not yet. And the rain's held off.
There's a phenomenon that happens here. I call it the 10-minute warning. Depending on what the temperature is like, you get a situation where you start to hear this hum, this buzz in the distance. If that happens, look out. Because within almost 10 minutes exactly, you're about to be swarmed by mosquitoes. And what it is, my understanding is that the mosquitoes are actually, they're all sitting on their little branches and leaves and blades of grass, and they actually are warming up their body temperature, getting ready. And then they take off on their hunt for blood. And when you hear that 10-minute warning, it's going to be a bad night.
True story. Very much a true story. That 10-minute warning, I've told it before, and I've had guys go, oh yeah, man, I know what you're talking about. Especially on a still night, the water's like glass, and you can hear this ambient buzzing of mosquitoes all around you in the lake. And if you don't have a tent to go into, you're in trouble. And I have also heard it happen before. It's very much a temperature-controlled thing. Gets to a certain temperature, it's perfect for the mosquitoes. Then they buzz their wings, they warm up their body temperatures, and off they go, and you're in trouble. But I've also felt it, and heard it happen one time. I was listening. Here comes the buzz. Oh no, it's going to be a bad night. Oh, you feel that little, and I felt a little chill, night air come in, and I heard the buzzing completely stop, because it was going to be too cold for them. So they were getting ready. It was going to be a good night of sucking blood, and too cold. They can't. And I'm like, oh yeah. And it was. I think I was actually out on a survival excursion too. So I knew, okay, I'm going to be a little chilly, but I got a fire going. But no bugs. So it's a real phenomenon at least in Ontario, Canada.
I haven't heard it yet. If I'm going to hear it, it's going to be soon. I can just hear the mosquitoes are buzzing, and they're echoing. I don't know how many there are, but it sounds like a million because of the canoe. Oh.
Oh, I'm getting itchy just remembering this.
This is insane. Oh, mosquitoes, mosquitoes.
Still raining. It rained pretty much all night, and I just tucked in here. The good news was, with the rain, every time it was hard, the mosquitoes would go away, so I had this time where I would sleep more while it was raining. But then when it would stop raining, the mosquitoes would come in again and wake me up. Been pretty intense this morning. So, awesome rain shelter. Not so good for the mosquitoes. I gotta make my way out of here, figure out how I can maneuver this canoe in the water. I'm gonna need to make a pole.
By the way, what I'm really playing off of here is a traditional voyageur way of traveling. The voyageurs who would do all of the fur trapping and trading that opened up the country of Canada and much of the United States. That's how they would sleep every night. They would have these large voyageur canoes, and you'd have several men all sleeping underneath it at the same time. But then the front, the open side, would be then covered with like a big cotton tarp, cotton sheet, canvas really, to protect them from the rain. I don't know, they didn't have a lot of protection from mosquitoes back in those days. But in many ways, I'm just kind of playing voyageur if I'm going to build a shelter based on having a canoe. It's kind of fun in a way.
So the reason why I want to take all this bark off and make this as smooth as possible, because if I'm poling in rapids or anything like that, then I don't want to be slicing my hand open on points and things sticking out from the wood. I want this to be nice and smooth. Makes it a lot easier to work with. One of the reasons why I like mobile survival so much rather than just sitting still is you end up finding a lot more things that can be advantages for your very survival. And the thing is, you've got to start it early before you start getting tired. And in this case, come upon a canoe, those types of finds are everything in a survival situation. And they don't happen when you're sitting still. So there we go. There's my pole. And I'm sure it will do.
By the way, in case you're making a judgment call on me, in case you're wondering about this, I made a judgment call that in checking the area out and seeing that canoe, this canoe is abandoned. This is not a canoe that someone's coming back for and that they're going to be using. It's totally an abandoned. And I say, well, who would abandon a canoe in the middle of the forest? Lots of people. I've come across many abandoned boats and canoes in my time, and this was one of them. It's mine now.
The trick. Let's get out of here.
Another hour or two of rain, and finally, I get a break in the weather. And now it's possible to move on.
It's nice that there's a big long rope on this thing, too. Let's see if she floats. Perfectly.
From my knowledge of this region, I know that if I head upstream, I can make it to a road. And sometimes, you have to take the harder path to make it to safety. The path of least resistance is not always the best direction to travel.
Now, full disclosure, some of these shots are sort of generic paddling shots that I got by going out and paddling around and just, concentrating on getting these shots. And then where I'm coming, I'm actually not far, right here, going up this river. I'm not far from going out to the dirt road at all. There's a boat landing that's not too far away. But I wanted to get to this river that just continues. So I bypassed, I actually had to bypass a couple of cottages, and then I go up this river. And this river goes back off through where there's nobody and nothing. And then eventually it comes out to a road again. So there's your full disclosure on where I was. This technique is something that I had always wanted to show. I don't really do a great job of showing it in this particular episode, but I did learn how to pole a canoe several times, and we used it in far northern Canada, coming down rivers. I worked up there with the Cree of Mistassini, Quebec, it's amazing to do canoe poling. If you want to see it, a great example of canoe poling, check out the film Water Walker by Bill Mason. Basically, that and Jeremiah Johnson, my two favorite movies of all time. So yeah, check out Water Walker, Bill Mason. Music by Bruce Cockburn, by the way, who I've had the great fortune to have worked with. But you get a great example of how to pole a canoe and work with a canoe going both upstream, which is the beauty of poling, and downstream.
There's only one way to do this. To break one of my own major important rules, and that is I'm going to go in the water with my boots, get my feet wet. Sometimes to get to where you have to go, you gotta break the rules. And away we go.
It can be very dangerous to allow myself to get wet during survival. If I can't get out to safety or get dry before the night, then I run the risk of chilling down to the point of hypothermia.
Still, though, one of my greatest joys in life will be going upstream in a canoe. You get up to far northern Canada. If you've never really done canoeing, it's one of the greatest things you'll ever do in your life. It's still my favorite recreational activity ever and favorite way to travel. And just like survival, just like in wild edible plants, I say go out with someone who knows their plants and can teach you. In survival, go learn from survival instructors, take their courses. And with going out in a canoe, go out, get a guide, learn how to canoe by having a guide take you out on a trip. It's one of the most beautiful things you'll ever do.
All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. The whole trick to poling is to get in a rhythm and then have the pole kind of stay up against the back of the canoe as you shove it into the ground underneath, and it keeps you straight.
Wilderness survival travel must always be slow and steady. One small slip on a rock and a broken or badly strained ankle can cause death.
Imagine the effort it took to get those shots. I'm trying to remember if I don't think I asked Max to meet me around this day to try to get these wide shots because I'm heading towards a road. Like, hey, yeah, go in and come down and get some shots while I finish on my final day. I think I got out and set up the camera and went by. But I'm going to have to ask Max.
One dunking in the water can lead to hypothermia.
Because you can get to this creek by walking. You get on the dirt road. You can then follow the dirt road, follow the creek. It's really, really rough going. It's off a road called Rabbit Lake Road in Temagami. Check it out for yourself if you don't believe me. And there's a certain place you can access it that will lead you down into Rabbit Lake. And I might have asked Max Atwood to go and just hike the shoreline and park himself on the shoreline and get shots of me. But now that I'm thinking about that, it would have been hell for him to do that. So, yeah, I must have just got out of the canoe and got these shots myself. Brutal.
One turn to the east when I should have turned to the west can change a route to safety, to a trip into hell. And yet all the safety...
Or this might have been one of those rare situations. We might have come back and shot those wide shots like at the end of the day or the next day. That almost rings a bell. So full disclosure, I say, oh, well, that's cheating. No, I still went through everything. I still did my survival. I did all of that. But I might have said, Max, I wasn't able to get good wide shots. Can you come down? Can you come up and we'll go back on the river and we'll get those shots. That might have been how we got those wide shots there. Normally, I just set the shots up. Like in the Amazon jungle, I actually got out of the canoe, dug out canoe, set up the shots, set up the cameras, going back upstream, came downstream, like all of that, which is why I wonder if I didn't do this here too. But something tells me that Max and I might have come back the next day to get those wide shots, to cut in here so you can see where I traveled.
Consciousness and all the tough decisions have to be employed while having had little sleep or food, which only serves to reiterate the fact that nothing can be done quickly in a survival situation. Fortunately, in an area like this, the beauty that surrounds me serves to calm the mind and spirit, making survival even more possible.
There's a flat, straight clearing right across up there that to me looks like a road. And I know these roads in this area. Walk my way out to the highway and home.
Okay, now I remember. That's right. I made my way out to the road and I had said to Max, here's where I will come out on such and such a day. So hopefully, so wait for me there. And he did. And then I was done. So I said, okay, let's go back down and I'll pull my way up the river and you can get some shots from the shoreline as we work our way up. That's how I got those shots.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to see.
There's the road.
The road. That's enough of this poling up the river. I'm getting out of here.
Even only a mile from your cottage or home, you can quickly find yourself lost and alone. Then the fight to survive begins. All the while you know that there are roads and buildings somewhere, and so onwards you push, sometimes towards safety, sometimes into certain death. And too often, only miles from your own bed. It happens every year. It happened this year. And it'll happen to someone next year. Prepare yourself for survival when in the wilderness always, so it doesn't ever happen to you.
There you go, 2013. Wow. I'm mostly shocked at just how. Oh, okay. I'm talking to you now because looks like the microphone just died. I'm not going to fix the battery, so I'll end it right here. Good timing. I'm just shocked at how little music Barry Farrell used for this, and I guess it was a matter of let's just go with the sound of the bugs. Well, there you go, guys. And again, you might be watching this in the middle of the summertime. I'm recording it just before Christmas, so that's why I'm in the festive spirit. One of the trees right back there. Again, if you do see this, just as I launch it, happy holidays, everybody. And that's the end of season 5 of Survivorman. Next up is season 6 of Survivorman. And I think we start with me in the Himalayan mountains. I think. We'll find out. I gotta look at my 20th anniversary DVDs and figure out what one is next. See you guys soon.